Hi, this is Starkie Sowers. Welcome again to another Nutrition Mission podcast brought to you from Clark's Nutrition and Natural Foods Market. All right, so one of the things that's always perplexed me all my life is aging. I worked out in my dad's gym, and a lot of times people would come back to the gym after being gone for years, and they would try to get back in shape and look better, things of that nature. The other thing that I also noticed once I started working in health food stores at a young age of like 18 years old is a lot of old people came into the stores wanting to rejuvenate themselves to get better again, all right? Or to prevent disease and things of that nature. So as a young kid, I was always kind of watching this, and it kind of perplexed me. Even when I was a teenager, I read a book by Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne, of course, goes down in history, very interesting man. Jack LaLanne was a sickly youth. He ate all sorts of sugars and garbage and things of that nature. He toured with Paul Bragg, encouraging people to eat a healthy diet and to work out. He was also a chiropractor, Mr. America, Mr. California, all sorts of different things. I actually got to meet Jack when he was 79 years old. And so ultimately I met Jack, and he did 79 chin-ups successively at the age of 79. Some other Jack LaLanne moments were at the age of 50 and the age of 60, he swam from Long Beach to Catalina by himself, okay? Last time I rowed a boat to Catalina and back, I was tired, let alone try to swim over there. He put together 13 rowboats, filled them full of kids from the YMCA, tied his hands behind his back and tied his legs together and did a dolphin kick with literally with a rope around his neck, pulling these 13 boats, these rowboats, and he took them from basically the San Francisco Bay Area all the way to Alcatraz. As you know, Alcatraz was built as an unescapable prison, and if anybody tried to jump in the waters, they would probably drown, okay? Jack was one of those guys that just liked to prove everything that could be done should be done. He had a standing workout. It was a $30,000 challenge. If you could work out and do his workout, he would hand you over a check for $30,000. This started in the 50s. It continued in the 60s. It continued in the 70s, continued in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. The first thing he did was 100 chin-ups in a row. If you could do 100 chin-ups, then we'll go on to the rest of the workout. Jack, in my opinion, aged well. He died at 96. He actually died of pneumonia. So at 96, not a bad way to go out. One of my buddies saw him when he was 93 years old up in Morro Bay, and he said he was walking down the pier, and he looked at me and he goes, "Hey, Jack, how's it going?" And he looks, "Doing great, man, doing great." So it's one of those cool guys. So I always wanted to age well. So at 61, looking back, anything that I would do when it came to nutrition, I always thought of the future. How am I going to age? How is it going to work out? So one of my things that I've done throughout the years is studied aging. All right. I've read probably about 20 books on the subject of aging. We age in various ways. We age mentally. We age physically when it comes to bone structure, as well as muscular structure, as well as the tendons and ligaments. We also age in our skin. We also age in our neural capacities, as far as like our brain to function with our body. We also age in other different areas, such as like auditory capacity, being able to listen. We also age in our eyesight. All these different things bugged me when it came to aging. I didn't want to get old, and I thought for a couple reasons. The first thing I was going to do is try to beat it. And so I've kind of laid out a quest in my life to try to beat it. So what I thought I would do today is just bring you some really simple tips. I'm going to try to keep this simple because it can get super complex when you walk into the store. So as you walk into the store, and if you're on this quest to be on the anti-aging moment, you might be in a situation where you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I got to take all these different things that you've got laid out here." Well, the answer is no. We're going to try to kind of custom fit for you what needs to happen. So first of all, you'll notice I've got a kettlebell here. All right. So it's kind of a fun kettlebell. It's a layered kettlebell. It's a mimic of the ones that were made in the 1900s, early 1900s. And so obviously it's here to kind of like motivate you to think of a couple things. Number one, here's the deal. If you keep your muscle system strong, if you keep yourself in shape, you're going to age very nicely. It's going to make a huge difference. Here's the reason why. When you hit 50, believe it or not, the body starts losing a large percentage of what is known as mitochondria. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cells. And mitochondria is what provides energy for the cells. It takes our carbohydrates, our proteins, and our fats that we ingest, takes the vitamins and minerals and pulls it into the cells and uses these things to produce this energy. So ultimately, right again, if you're not eating right as a foundation, it's going to catch up with you. But here's the deal. we hit 50 years old and these mitochondria start dying like flies. We start losing these. A lot of my buddies will come in, they go, man, I just don't feel good anymore. I just don't have the energy. Are you working out? No, I'm not working out. Got to start working out. I don't care whether you start walking, whether you start lifting weights, whatever you do, and let's do something, let's keep moving, because what happens is your body starts building more mitochondria. You have more mitochondria, you have more energy. You're not going to be tired all the time. Okay, so these mitochondria become very critical in helping us function and stay active and stay alive, all right? Muscle tissue, as we've talked about before, it degradates. If you're not working out, as you age, every decade as you age, you start losing muscle. You lose muscle, you're going to lose mitochondria. You lose muscle, you're going to lose flexibility. You lose muscle, you're going to lose the ability to kind of hang out with younger people and do young things, such as like play basketball or this or whatever the case might be. You want to keep that muscle tissue active. The best way I know to make it happen is lifting weights. I don't care whether you're doing kettlebells. I don't care whether you're doing barbells. I don't care what you're doing, but lifting weights, in my opinion, and so many different opinions now say that is paramount. It's more important than aerobic exercise as far as maintaining not only muscle mass, but vitality and youth. So that's one of the primary things that we've got to see up here, is you got to be able to be in a situation where that is the biggest challenge to keep rolling. You obviously, if you've not worked out before, or if you're in a situation where you haven't worked out in a long time, want to get doctor's clearance, be smart, get a trainer that's decent. Ultimately, we're going to have another conversation with Oscar later on this week, and so that'll be a fun one to listen to. We're about personal training. So it kind of gives you a little bit of tips maybe on how to find a good personal trainer. That said, let's also look at this. You'll notice that there's all sorts of food on the counter here. I've got eggs, I've got yams, I've got raspberries, I've got a purple bell pepper, I've got some lettuce, I've got kale, I've got a leek, and I've got almonds. You can't get the nutrients that you need by eating a refined foods diet. I don't care who you are. You're ultimately going to end up cutting short. And so you've got to eat a variety of different types of foods. Okay, if you don't do a variety of different types of foods, you're not going to get the nutrients that your body needs. Remember, those nutrients that were critical on building that energy cycle are right here in the foods that we have. And ultimately, it becomes critical for us to eat good foods. If you don't feel well, if you're mentally fogged, if you're challenged in a situation where you're just feeling fatigued maybe in the afternoon, you're probably not getting enough nutrients in so your body can function properly. Your brain, it runs on glucose, it runs on ATP. If you don't have glucose, you don't have ATP, guess what's going to happen with your brain? You're going to end up with brain fog. You're not going to think well. You're not going to perform well. You don't perform well, you're not going to do well in your job. You don't do well in your job, and it's economically going to challenge you. All these things I've put out here are to design you to live a much more abundant life. All right? So let's talk about supplementation. I feel like the foundation is lifting weights and eating right. That's always the foundation. That said, though, even when we eat right, a lot of times we end up getting gaps in our diet. All right. And as we age, there are some challenges, but we're going to talk about those gaps first. So the first gap is, after, about 10 years of doing evaluations on individuals' diets and pumping it into a computer and getting information that's spit out, I found that not one person, including athletes of all different types, eating up to 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day, not one person was able to get the RDAs for their vitamins. All the vitamins and nutrients that you need. There's 27 different vitamins and nutrients, and also considering vitamins, minerals, as well as some other different types of components. Most people don't even come close to getting the RDAs. What are the RDAs? The RDAs are the recommended dietary allowances that you need to prevent your body from getting what we call nutrient deficiency diseases. And those disease situations are nutrient deficiency. So like if you're deficient in B vitamins, for instance, let's say you're deficient in B1, you'll end up getting what is known as pellagra. B3. So the pellagra ends up being the 3Ds: dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, okay? So literally dementia is related to a vitamin B3 deficiency if it's chronically deficient. Most Americans, calm down, most Americans don't have nutrient deficiency diseases. Most Americans have what we call subclinical nutrient deficiency situations. What does that mean? Well, it means this. Let's say, for instance, you're chronically not low, but borderline in B vitamins, okay? Here's what we call subclinical deficiency B vitamin syndrome, okay? Anxiety, depression, as well as inability to sleep properly, bad dreams, as well as inability to concentrate, things of that nature. Those are what we call subclinical deficiencies. Because of the way our foods are processed as well as handled, oftentimes people are deficient. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You want to use a multivitamin, okay? You want to make sure that you're getting a multivitamin into the system, because a multivitamin is going to help fill the gaps and help you actually establish a much better foundation. So primary number one, supplements, multivitamin becomes first. The older you are, the more comprehensive the multi you might want to take, where it's got more vitamin E, vitamin C, calcium, things of that nature, which means you're going to, instead of taking one pill a day, you might have to take 2 or 3 or more, okay? The other thing is Americans are chronically deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids, you've heard about 1,000 times. Help prevent cardiovascular disease. Help prevent situations like stroke. Also helps you with, believe it or not, different things such as muscle mass. The other thing that we actually see in omega-3s is thinking. When it comes to nootropics or brain activity, omega-3s become primary. DHA is the primary specific fatty acid to help you stay more mentally focused in a lot of different situations. The other thing that I think is foundational is this. Once you hit 50, your ability to digest food starts to become much less. And so what becomes critical is using an enzyme with probiotics, or this particular one that I brought is an enzyme with probiotics, trying to keep it simple. Multivitamin, omega-3 fatty acids. By the way, there's liquid as well as capsule. I brought krill. I like the krill the best. And then at the same time, what we have here is an enzyme with probiotics kind of mixed together. So literally 3 tablets or capsules, or a little bit of liquid, depending on what you choose, is a foundation that I consider essential. All right? So here's another topic, adrenal glands. As we age, our ability to adapt, as well as to be able to take on new challenges, oftentimes happens with the ability of our adrenal glands to be able to produce the right types of hormones. So the adrenal glands have to be constantly nurtured. Okay, the Chinese actually did this on a regular basis using what we call tonic herbs. So I brought some specific tonic herbs. This is the one that I choose to use. It's called anti-stress. It's actually what we call a Rhamania 6. It's kidney adrenal nutrients. It helps to balance the adrenal, so it helps you with stress, helps you with anxiety, but at the same time, great for mental alertness, and helps you stay younger. Ultimately, in Chinese medicine, instead of saying anti-stress, they would call this youth nutrients. A step a little bit further, Imperial adaptogen, brought in by Paradise Herbs, has all the adaptogenic type herbs together. All those particular adaptogenic herbs work in different areas, as well as not only helping with the adrenal glands, but other glands in the body, and helping it to stay stronger. Adaptogen, as it says, helps you adapt to any type of challenge that your body's actually going through. Same time, probably one of the most popular ones that you'll see nowadays is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, of course, is another herb that's an adaptogenic herb, specifically from India. Very popular in Ayurvedic medicine and Ayurvedic systems. Very commonly used nowadays here in the United States. A great adaptogen herb, very common, very popular, very easy to use, super simple, great for sleep, as well as also kind of helping with anxiety, things of that nature. All right, so that's kind of a core foundation. So at this particular point, if you look at it, we're looking at 4 capsules or tablets ultimately. So now let's hit a few challenges. Let's talk about a couple things. Let's talk about mental alertness. Let's talk about also just general health. So let's hit another unique situation. You hit 50 years old, oftentimes people are challenged when it comes to cardiovascular system. And it might be things such as hyperlipidemia, or it might be situations where it's maybe you just are getting fatigued more commonly. As we talked about with those mitochondria, coenzyme Q10 ends up being something of critical importance, especially when it comes to cardiovascular situation. Coenzyme Q10 ends up being something that helps to nourish it, the heart as well as the mental alertness factor. In my opinion, if you're at 50 years old, I think it's another nutrient that needs to be added for longevity and makes a huge difference. It's an antioxidant. It protects the cardiovascular system as well as the vascular system. Also great for mental alertness, as I was saying. I think it's just one more thing that you ought to add. I brought with me a gummy form, so it's easy to use. My wife, I have her using about 400 milligrams a day. She eats 3 gummies, easy to do. All right, so let's focus a little bit different. So let's say, yeah, I'm good with the multivitamin. Yeah, I'm good with the fatty acids. Yeah, I'm good with the digestive enzyme. Yeah, this maybe makes sense when it comes to the adaptogens, but I more want this. I think I have a challenge mentally. I want to work more on the mental focus, mental alertness, things of that nature. So I brought a couple things. As you hit 50, one of the things that also happens is this. Our bodies need more B12 as we get older. The reason why is we don't digest B12 and absorb it like we did when we were in our 20s and 30s. You hit like 40 years old, 50 years old, we know this, that lack of B12 on a long duration of time actually is a component that we're seeing that's almost like a causative factor in Alzheimer's disease situations. We know that if there's adequate amounts of B12 in the system, your chances of getting Alzheimer's is significantly less, especially if you've been deficient in B12 for a long period of time. I think it's a simple fix. It's easy. This is like $8. 1 tablet a day dissolves on top of the tongue. Very beneficial for helping in a couple different situations. Number one, as I said, good for mental alertness, but it's also great for cardiovascular protection. So something I think that should be in your multi-program, regardless whether you're going to use some of the other different adaptogens. I think it's something that has to be there. Then I brought 2 specific things. Let's say that you're a little bit younger, you're like in your 30s or 40s, and you just don't feel like you're mentally clear, right? I brought this formula from Lycese, and it's called Clarity, okay? And so this Clarity formula is very unique. It has huperzine as well as phosphatidylserine, as well as vinpocetine and ginkgo. You've probably heard a lot about those. Here's the deal. Phosphatidylserine, I talked to Dr. Paris Kidd years ago. He's the one who did all the research on phosphatidylserine. Literally, what it does is it opens up the vascular system in the brain. Not only helps with improved circulation in the brain, it actually helps with memory transportation as well as recall. If somebody's in a situation where they need more clarity and you're like in the 30s and 40s, things of that nature, I would suggest that would be optimal. Let's say you're a little bit older and you feel like, you know what, I'm past the clarity thing. I literally feel like I'm mentally declining. Dr. Bredesen, who wrote a book called The End of Alzheimer's, put together a product called NeuroQ. Okay? He has what he calls Recode in his book. And his Recode idea is that you actually use a bunch of supplements and a diet program to actually recode your brain and put your brain back in a situation where possibly you could actually prevent yourself from going further into Alzheimer's. I talked to him and I said, look, here's what the deal is. Instead of doing recode, a lot of people need a pre-code. We want to prevent ourselves from getting to that point. So he developed what is known as NeuroQ. Very interesting product. Couple things. Number one, let's say you're in a situation where you think, well, it might work, it might not work. Here's the deal. You go onto their website. You can do a test. It's actually a neurological test that you do on your computer. So you go onto the computer and you do these things. It's like answer this and push these tabs and do these different things. And they give you a score. Then they challenge you to take their product for 30 days and then come back and take another test. So I did for 30 days, came back, my test improved 20 to 30% in all categories. So then they continue to challenge you to use it for 90 days and come back and do it again. It is the number one selling product we have when it comes to memory in our stores. A lot of people not only have done the test, they've enjoyed the test and significantly actually helped improve their memory. So that's a challenge for you in that spot. Finally, one of the things that I know is this. Once you hit the 60 plus moment, you start hitting 60 plus, you actually need more protein. I don't care whether you're going to get from bone broth, a vegetarian source, a whey source, or whatever the case might be. Your actual RDA, which is the recommended dietary allowance, remember that was actually the minimal amount that you want to prevent disease situations from happening. The RDA for protein is typically about 56 to 60 grams, okay? You hit 60, 70 years old, it actually goes to 80 grams. So that's the RDA. The significance becomes very significant because of this. You ultimately start losing muscle mass as you age. Protein helps to prevent it. But here's the deal. Most of the studies show that protein with the weightlifting is what makes it happen. In fact, I would say 90% of the studies suggest that. A few studies say you can just use the protein alone just to slow down the loss of muscle. But ultimately, if you're going to keep that muscle mass, you got to do the combination of both of them together, which goes back to that healthy diet situation, as well as the healthy training program. Putting them together makes a huge difference. So hopefully this lays a foundation for you. I think it's very simple. Puts us in a situation where we're eating right, we're supplementing smartly, we're using a multivitamin to fill the gaps. We're using the omega-3s because the diets are typically very lacking in that. Using maybe some specific things for digestion as well as, such as enzymes and probiotics for the aging situation. Using a tonic herb combination that basically helps to balance the adrenals and strengthen the body for the challenges ahead. Finally, coenzyme Q10, if you're in a situation where you're 50 plus, I just think it's smart. Okay, and there's reasons why statistically as well as research, and then maybe some specific things if you're being challenged mentally, and finally get enough protein in. I think it's going to help you fill the gaps and help you to age well as your life's going on. All right, so hopefully good foundation, definitely stay in the training, make a difference. So put it together, use it. Thanks again for listening to another Nutrition Mission podcast brought to you from Clark's Nutrition and Natural Foods Market.